presentation. There we go. Thanks, Zoom, for letting us know we're recording. Welcome, everybody. Really excited to chat all things travel. This is the third part in our three-part series, all about travel. And tonight's topic is all about safety. So really an important topic. Lots of questions, lots of answers, lots of suggestions. Just so you know, obviously, we got to put our disclaimers out there. This is not the be-all and end-all of safety information. These are just some suggestions. We recommend that you follow up with the resources we provide you and make sure that you do your due diligence. We can't cover every aspect of safety. We're going to do our best to give you kind of that 10,000 foot view of what safety can look like on while you're traveling. But please, please, please do your homework, do all the follow-up. Really, it's on you to be in charge of your safety. We're just here to give you some pointers and point you in the right direction. Now, who are we? I guess we should probably say, who are we? Who am I? So I'm Michelle Dittmer, and I run the Canadian Gap Year Association, which is a nonprofit organization helping people coast to coast to coast who are considering a gap year. And whether that is deciding if they should or should not take a gap year, or if they are taking one, how do they make it purposeful? How do they get the most out of their experience? And for a lot of gappers, that involves travel. So we wanted to really kind of dive into this a little bit and talk about all of the ways that we can be ready for travel, because it really truly is one of the biggest growing opportunities, whether that is expanding your horizons, seeing other parts of the world, or learning to become more independent, to navigate the world on your own. It really is just such an incredible, incredible opportunity. So let's just make sure that we celebrate that, because travel can be such an amazing opportunity. I myself have been to over 35 different countries, so I am no stranger to travel. I've done group travel, I've done solo travel, I've lived abroad, I've traveled for work, I've traveled with my family. So lots and lots and lots of different experiences that I've had. So if you do want to ask any intentional questions around my travel experience or what I've seen on the road, please, please, please don't hesitate. I am an open book, and just want to make sure that you guys are getting the information that you need. So don't hesitate to put those questions in the chat, like I mentioned before. So we already talked about where you guys are tuning in from. We've got some folks from the West Coast, from Central Canada, and in Toronto. Nobody from the East Coast tonight. Hopefully somebody will be checking it out on the recording. I would love to know from you guys, what is your dream destination? So we're talking all things travel. What would be the place that you could go? If money was no barrier, if time was no barrier, what would be that dream place that you would like to pick up and head to? Whether that's for vacation or whether that is to move there for a little while. Let me know in the chat, because I'm always curious where you guys are hoping to be heading, because I think it's really cool to see what is out there, whether you want to head to India or China or Japan or Portugal. We had lots of people heading to Portugal recently. So there's so many different places that you can travel around the world. So don't be shy to share it, because maybe I've been there and maybe I've got some tips for you on your travel journey as well. Oh, Vienna, beautiful. I have not been there yet. No, not yet. On my list, though. Actually, the top of my bucket list is to head to Croatia. That's the next one I want to head to. Sarah wants to go to London. I lived in the UK. That's actually where I was working abroad. So I spent lots of time in London, and I've flown through London, done lots of layovers in London. Really, really cool. India, in New Delhi, amazing. Amazing. Yes, I spent some time in India as well. I went to Udaipur, which is in the Rajasthan province, kind of up near the north in the mountains, and it's the city of lakes. Very, very cool. Amazing, amazing. So let's talk about these things, because those are three very different destinations, but a lot of this content is going to be very, very relevant to you. So what is the content? What are we going to be talking about today? Why should you stick around? This is what we're going to tackle. We're going to tackle safety around trip planning. So what do you need to do in the planning process before you go? What do you need to do? You've got your trip planned, but what are the boxes you have to check, the things you have to get in order? All about insurance. We could do a whole presentation on that, but we'll take a chunk of our time to talk about insurance. We'll talk about what should you be packing, and then once you're actually on the road, what are some tips and tricks for staying safe while you are on the road? Sunny, I see Costa Rica, amazing. I did a trip to Costa Rica as well. It was really, really cool. I traveled with an organization called G Adventures. And we did a little bit of everything. We hiked some mountains, we were in the rainforest, a little bit of everything. It was lots of fun. You will love it there. Cool. So that's what we're planning on tackling today. Pop those questions in the chat if I'm not clear on anything or you want to go in a different direction. So let's talk about the trip planning process. So this is even before we have a plane ticket. What do we need to do in order to make sure that our planning process sets us up for success? The very first thing that you're going to want to do is decide on that location and become familiar with that, that location, because really there is so many things happening in the world. We can't be aware of all of them, and we want to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success. So the thing that I want you to do, and I've popped the link into the chat here, is always check with our federal government. They have an incredible resource online at travel.gc.ca. On this website, they have advisories, travel advisories, that will let you know what's happening in that country and whether they recommend traveling there or not. They will also let you know if there are any health issues. I know we've all kind of been through COVID, and there's some other viruses kind of picking up around the world. So just checking in with this website is going to give you a ton of information. I'm going to come back to it again later on. But when you're picking your destination, make sure you're aware of what our government is saying in terms of the travel. It will be very, very specific about what the challenges are with traveling there and whether they encourage it or discourage it. Obviously, they're not going to stop you, but they are going to give some really, really sound advice. So first of all, check your destination, check on travel.gc.ca and find out what kind of the state of that area of the world is, and that will give you some really good tips and tricks. The other thing that you should be checking is the weather for the time that you are traveling. In Canada, we've kind of got our 4 seasons, and if you were coming from abroad, you probably wouldn't want to come in January, February in, let's go to Manitoba, because it's going to be dangerous driving for people who aren't used to it. And it's the same thing that's true elsewhere in the world. People have monsoon season. People have incredibly landslide season, flash flood season. So definitely, if you know when you want to be traveling and where you want to be going, double check the weather to make sure that that time of year is a reasonable time to be traveling to that place, because you don't have experience with flash floods. I hope you don't have experience with monsoons, or you might just not enjoy yourself if you are going to be there when you have to be inside because there's crazy storms happening outside. So check with travel.gc.ca and check the weather patterns. Those are 2 really, really good places to start when you're picking it. The other thing that you should be aware of is checking any sort of identity-specific sites. So if you are a marginalized group in any form, there are tons of sites out there that you can check to find out if that destination is going to be a safe place for you. I've noted 3 of them here, and I will actually pop them into the chat as well, because it's hard to copy down those when they are on a slide. So I'm going to copy these and pop them in here. The 3 organizations that I have just kind of not randomly chosen, but we know that a lot of our gappers fall into these particular categories. So the ILGTA is an incredible resources for anybody belonging to the LGBTQ community. Tons of resources around how to travel safely, where is safe, what the culture is in particular places, even listing specific accommodations that are known to be safe places if you are part of that community. Same thing for Green Book. Green Book Global, incredible organization run by Black people, for Black people, and talking about people's experience with the culture and what racism exists and how Black people are treated in different countries. And then for women travelers, unfortunately, there is still a lot more challenge for women travelers. And there are certain countries that are more or less safe for you if you are a woman, especially if you are going to be traveling on your own. So be sure to check in with those organizations or anyone else you can find online. So you could type in travel safety for East Asian people. And whatever your identity is that may be marginalized or may be a danger to you, please, please, please do that research. It can be very, very helpful to know what you're walking into. You can also do lots of research on the culture there because it is going to be different. So what are the cultural norms? Should you be not wearing shorts? Should you be wearing long pants? Should you have your shoulders covered? Is it polite to look people in the eye? All of those cultural pieces will help you to be comfortable when you're landing there, but also keep yourself safe because we want to be blending in as much as possible. We don't want to be standing with a neon sign saying, hey, I'm a tourist and I probably have lots of cash on me and I'll get lost and disoriented really easy and I don't know who the police are. We don't want to be drawing attention to that. So if we can be more familiar with what's going on, that will help us to feel a little bit more comfortable in once we land on the ground. Does anybody have any questions about that? Pop them in the chat if you do. They're really, really great websites, and I highly recommend that you do that research. And this isn't the fun part of planning a trip. We want to get to the flights and the accommodations and what are you going to do on the ground. But if we get too far down that rabbit hole and we get too excited, we get all these things planned, even if you've bought a ticket and then you do this research and be like, wow, this actually isn't a safe place for me to go. We'd be pretty disappointed. So let's back it up and let's do this work first so that we can set ourselves up for success when we're doing all of that other fun stuff that's happening. If you are traveling with an organization, so I mentioned that I had traveled with G Adventures Tours. I've also traveled with Kentucky. I used to work for Me to We. So I've done a lot of group travel. And group travel comes with all sorts of different organizations out there. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, anybody can make a website. Anybody can collect your payment online. Anybody can send you tickets. So it's really, really important that you check with that particular organization to make sure that they're legit. You want to make sure they're a real organization and that they're going to keep you safe on the ground. We do have a tool for that. So I'm going to pop this link into the chat. This is a download. So when you click on that, it will bring you directly to a download, and that will be questions to ask your program provider. And this is to check that they will take care of you, that you will be safe, that they are an ethical travel organization. They're not going to be taking advantage of anybody in the local community. A really great resource to help you make sure that you are going to feel safe and that they are going to take good care of you. So use that list of questions if you are choosing to travel with an organization, whether it's volunteering, whether it's a tourist organization, whatever it happens to be. Make sure you use those questions because it can be really, really helpful so that you know what you're stepping into. Amazing. All right, let's move on from here. Okay, so we know where we're going. We've got our flights. We are starting to book our accommodations. We need to do a couple other things to check off all of those things on our safety journey to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success. So what do we have to do before we even leave our home? What are the things that we need to do? So let's talk about the itinerary. We want to put together a very detailed itinerary. And the reason why we want to do this is because we want somebody to know where we are at all times. If something were to happen, they need to know where that they can find us. If something were to happen in that country, they need to know how they can get in touch with you. So making sure that you're writing down your accommodations, and that includes the address and the phone number of those accommodations, write down any flights, any trains, any flight numbers. All of that information, all of that logistical information will be really helpful to put on a detailed itinerary. You're going to take that and you're going to make printed copies, and you are going to keep one, and you are going to pass one on to your emergency contact at home. So that baby mom or dad might be grandma, an aunt and uncle, a friend, whoever is going to be the one that will be aware of where you are during your travel. Going to be very, very helpful. You can also keep a digital copy of that so that in the event that you lose your copy, they lose yours, there is somewhere where they can access it. So having that detailed itinerary in your hands and in the hands of somebody else is very, very helpful. Any questions about that? I know some people are a little bit nervous to have all their information in one spot, but where they're going to be. The odds of somebody stalking you, very, very slim. And if you keep this really close to you, you're not just leaving it around the hostel, you're not leaving it on the train. If you're taking good care of it, like you would take care of your passport, then there's a much higher likely that it will actually come in handy than cause you harm. So definitely get that in the hands of somebody so that they know where you are. You also want to make copies of your documents. So a copy of your passport, a copy of your credit cards, your debit cards. If you have your insurance policy, make copies of those. Just a photocopy or scan, print it out, whatever. Digital copies if you have a safe place to store them that's secure, making sure that you have copies of those in case you lose them. It's a lot faster to get your passport replaced if you have a copy of it. It's got your passport number, all of the information that they need to replace it. Really, really helpful to have that on you. Now, when you're traveling, maybe make 2 copies of that and put them in 2 different locations. When we're traveling, we never want to put all of our eggs in one basket. That means keeping everything in one spot. You don't want all your cash in one spot. You don't want all your underwear in one spot. You don't want all your passport and travel documentation in one spot, because maybe the airline's going to lose one suitcase, or you're going to forget your bag at the museum that you're at. If you have all of these things spread out over multiple bags, maybe some stuff in the safe at your hotel or at your hostel or in your locker, then you have backups to backups. Really, really helpful to have all of this. Also, pass it on to your emergency contact in the event that they need to get a hold of you or something happens. Somebody needs to track your credit card. Somebody needs to find you. Really, really helpful that they have this information. And you can keep all of these things in waterproof bags, because you wouldn't imagine how many times you get caught in the rain, or you put your wet towel in your backpack with all of your documents. So make sure you have some sort of waterproof bag to put it in. It could be as simple as a Ziploc. It could be something more fancy and complex, like a dry bag. Whatever it is, make sure that you have it somehow saved away from water and put it in different places throughout. Now, other things that you can do. You can register as a Canadian abroad. So again, on travel.gc.ca, there's a link on there that will tell you to register yourself as a Canadian abroad. This is really, really helpful for you and for the government. So in the event that there is a civil unrest that happens in a country, or there is an environmental disaster that's happening, maybe wildfires have started in the country, the government knows that you're in that country. They will have your contact information. They will get in touch with you and let you know. And they'll be a lot easier in the, like, knock on wood, worst case scenario, you have to be evacuated. They know where you are and they know to come and find you. So we want the government on our side. Like, this is like worst case scenario. I don't want to scare you. This is never happened to me. It probably never will, but we just want to be on the safe side. So let the government know where you're going to be. And it's a pretty straightforward form. They're just asking for contact information, where you're going to be, what country. You can put multiple countries in there if you're going to be kind of hopping around, but they just want to know where you are in the event they need to get a hold of you, or if there's some emergency at home that somebody needs to reach you and find you, that can happen there too. The other thing you want to do is when you're traveling, make note of the closest embassy or consulate to where you're going to be. So for those of you who don't know what an embassy or a consulate is it's a little piece of Canada in another country. So it's the Canadian government's representatives in that particular country. So usually there is a building or an office, a place where the representatives and the people who represent our government are physically in that country. So this is a place of great refuge for you as a Canadian abroad. If you lose your passport, this is where you're going to go. So make sure you know where those places are. It will just give you peace of mind that you don't have to stress and freak out and try and find it when you're already upset that you've lost your passport. Make sure that you just know where they are and have that contact information at the ready so that you can just casually reach out when that passport goes missing. Again, we are always planning for the worst case scenario, but really, really helpful. Give me let's see, what kind of reaction should we use here? Why don't you just let me know in the chat, actually. Let's do this. Let me know in the chat if you knew that you could register as a Canadian abroad. So you can just give me a yes or a no, because most people it's a no. Sarah knew that already. Awesome. Yeah, new for Sunny and Rory. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. It's really, really helpful to know that that they've got our backs, quite frankly. And that we are going to be protected and taken care of by our government, even when we are elsewhere in the world. So very, very cool. Awesome. Let's talk about health. There's some things we need to do about health. First thing, you want to talk to your family doctor if you have any pre-existing conditions. If you have diabetes and you need to take your insulin, how are you going to manage that? How are you going to keep your insulin refrigerated while you're on those flights? Are you allowed to take needles with you on the plane? If you have a heart condition, how is the high altitude of hiking the Himalayas going to impact that? So talk to your family doctor about your travel plans and see if any of those conditions might be impacted by the travel that you have planned. The second thing that you should do is visit a travel doctor. So there are specific travel doctors out there that are well-versed in what's happening health-wise in all of the different countries. What vaccines might you need? What antibiotics might you need? What do you need to take some Dukoral so you don't get diarrhea on your trip? All of these things, these travel doctors are really, really helpful, and you want to meet with them as early as possible because some of these vaccines, you need at least a month for them to be active in your system. Most of them are about 2 weeks. At 2 weeks, you're fully covered, but make sure you're not leaving it till the very, very last minute. Sometimes you need couple rounds of vaccines. So just make sure that you are connecting with that travel doctor and getting any of the medication that you need for whether it's mosquito-borne illness, waterborne illness, you name it. These guys will make sure that you are covered from a health perspective. Let me know if I'm going too fast here. I've got lots of stuff and lots of talking today, and it's not the most exciting stuff, but kind of eye-opening and interesting stuff to know. Okay, let's talk about money, 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 money. Lots of things about money because that's what people want to steal. That's what people want to spend. That's what people want to have. So the first thing that you want to do is to become familiar with the currency. Are they using pounds? Are they using yen? Are they using the euro? Are they using the kroner? Like, what are they using? And then how much is it worth? And really start to become familiar with what that exchange rate is, because it can be very easy to look at something and it is 10,000 yen and say, oh, that's really cheap or that's really expensive, and be completely, completely off. So make sure you know what that currency exchange rate is so that you know whether somebody is trying to take advantage of you or if it is a reasonable price for whatever you are looking to purchase. So become familiar with that. Now, if you are traveling for a while, we don't want to be walking around with wads of cash on us. That is not the safest opportunity. So most travel organizations recommend you have about 3 days worth on you as you leave your home. So you've got enough to get you through the first couple of days, and then you can take more money out along the way, kind of at 3-day intervals, to make sure that you're not having too much cash on you. Because if somebody were to pickpocket you and take all of your money, you want them to take less rather than more. We don't want to be traveling around flashing $100 bills everywhere that we go. So if you have enough for about 3 days, you're probably going to be pretty good once you land on the ground. The next thing you want to do is call your credit card and your bank. You want to know first of all, you need to let them know that you're traveling, because you don't want to land in London and go to pay for your underground ticket and your card's declined because they're like, whoa, why are you not in Toronto? You're supposed to be in Toronto now that it must be a fraud. We're gonna block your credit card. So let them know that you're traveling, so that when those transactions appear in London or in Japan or in wherever you're going, that they're not going to shut down your credit card. Same for your debit card. Same thing. Call the bank. Let them know. Also ask them, how do you take out money when you're in country? So I said take enough for 3 days, but there's not going to be a Scotiabank. There's not going to be a TD when you land in these countries. So what does that look like? How do you take out money once you are in country? And are there any fees associated with it that you can be aware of? Does that make sense? There are international credit cards and international bank accounts, but unless you're going to be traveling the world all the time, it's probably worth just paying a couple extra dollars here and there for those transaction fees. Awesome. Any questions? Let me know. You guys are super quiet. Or are you guys just expert travelers? You're like, nah, got this. I knew that. Piece of cake. No questions. All right. We're just zooming through this stuff. All right, let's talk about insurance. Insurance. How do we deal with it? Do we need it? What do we need? How much coverage do we need? There's so many questions when it comes to insurance. And now everybody is going to have different plans that are existing. Some places, you're going to just need to buy travel insurance as a supplementary piece. So insurance can be a tricky one, and you're going to have to do your research, but I'll talk about that in a second because I see a question come in. Will there be specific places where you can take money out? Yes. So it is very similar to North America. There will be banks. There will be those private little ATM machines. If you have a choice, go to a bank to take out the money, because it's less likely that those machines have been tampered with. I don't know if you've ever gone to like a restaurant and they've got like the sketchy little ATM machine. It's super small and you're like, I don't feel good about this. Yeah, you're going to look for a bank in that particular country and go there. And yes, you can go to any bank. But check with your bank as well. Make sure, double check, triple check, ask them the question, say, hey, I'm going to London. Can I take money out of Barclays? Can I take money out of HSBC? And they'll probably be able to give you a list of banks that are available to you. And in most countries, any old bank will be able to provide you with cash. Yeah, good questions, but always call your bank and ask, because we don't want to be caught in a situation where we're not going to have access to the money that we need. Great question. Good stuff. Okay, let's talk about insurance. We'll flip-flop back and forth if we have to. Insurance, check what coverage you already have. Maybe your parents have an insurance policy that has a travel component to it. Maybe your credit cards have travel insurance built into them. Always check and see what you have existing, because we don't want to pay for stuff if we already have it. So check all of those things. A lot of credit cards have insurance for car rentals and insurance on car rentals and flights, cancellation insurance, all sorts of stuff. So check and read all the fine print and find out from your credit cards, from your banks, from your parents' insurance, whatever it is, what do you have that exists? Then, once you know what you're already covered for, then think about, do I need additional coverage? Is there something specific that I want to make sure that I am insured for? And insurance is a pain in the butt because it feels like you're forking out money for nothing. And sometimes you are, because you might not need to make a claim. And you know what? Thank goodness, because it means nothing went wrong. But in the event that something does go wrong, having that insurance there will save your butt. So make sure you know what they are. So looking at the additional types of coverage or travel coverage, a lot of places will have cancellation insurance. So if you have to cancel your trip for whatever reason, some of them will refund your money for things that maybe aren't refundable from the organization. So flights or accommodations or things you've had to put a deposit down on. Sometimes the insurance will cover that. Trip interruption, maybe you had to come home early. Will they cover the flight change tickets? Fees? Who knows? That is another form of insurance coverage, travel insurance coverage, and medical insurance. So your OHIP card is not going to work if you are out in India. So what does that coverage look like, and how are you going to make sure that you are taken care of? When you are talking to insurance companies about this, you want to ask some very specific questions because insurance can be tricky. There's lots of little loopholes. There's lots of times where they will talk in legalese and it's hard to understand. So make sure you have the answers to these questions either by reading through their documentation or by talking to someone. I personally prefer talking to someone because I don't understand what they're saying in all of that writing. So I need somebody to translate it into a language that I understand. So being very clear on what does this policy cover and what does this policy not cover. So in a lot of cases, they're not going to cover pre-existing conditions. So if you have a heart condition and you go on a trip and like lo and behold, you like have a heart attack while you're on that trip, the insurance is not going to cover your medical fees. It's not going to cover your trip home. It's not going to cover anything. So check and see if your pre-existing conditions are covered because that can be important to you. Sometimes they will say, we'll cover you, but not if you're going to do anything too dangerous. So if you want to go whitewater rafting or bungee jumping, or you're going to be participating in some sort of sporting activity. So anything that could be considered high risk is sometimes written out of your contract. So if they deem that you were doing something that was too risky, maybe the policy wouldn't cover it if you sustained an injury while doing that. So check and see if that's something that you're going to be doing a lot of on your trip or any on your trip. See if there's a way to increase the coverage that would allow you to be covered for that. Other things that my husband has experienced as well is there an evacuation? So if you're going to a very rural area, does the policy cover evacuation? And what does that look like? If you need to be airlifted out of the Himalayan mountains, are they going to cover the cost of that helicopter? So what does that look like? So ask about all of those things that are not covered. You want to know what you are covered for. You want to know if the policy is time restricted. So usually when we have our general insurance, it's kind of just indefinite. You have insurance to drive a car any day you want until your policy expires. So a lot of our insurance is just very general, but travel insurance can sometimes have a start date and an end date. So if you told the travel company or the insurance company that you are leaving on Monday and you're coming back Friday, but your flight got, or your trip got shifted by 3 days, now you're leaving Wednesday and coming back Monday, maybe the insurance is only still going to cover you till Friday. So just make sure that you know what that looks like. And if you need to adjust the timing of your trip, can you adjust the insurance policy as well? Other questions to ask them is, how do I make a claim? what does that look like? Are you going to front the money? So let's say you, let me think of an example here that's not, I always have the catastrophic versions in my head. Let's say you lost your baggage. There we go. Nice, easy one. Will the insurance pay right then and there? Will they give you the money up front so that you can go out and buy new clothing? Or do you have to keep your receipts and pay it back later and fill out a form and get them to pay it back later? These are things that you need to know, because maybe if they're not going to pay your medical fees and you have to have surgery and it costs $10,000, they might not give that money up front. So just be aware of how to make a claim, because that is just really good information, so that in the moment you're not panicking and trying to figure this all out. You'll already have that information in the back of your head and know how to move forward with the insurance company. Last thing, another question that I often ask is, what is your cancellation policy look like? So if I have to cancel my trip, it says that you have cancel for any reason insurance. Well, what does that mean? Can I cancel at the last minute? Does it need to be 3 days ahead of time? So asking what the cancel your travel plans little blurb actually means. Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot. Any questions about insurance? How much would it cost if you got very sick in a foreign country? That really depends. It depends where you are. It depends what type of sickness. It depends on the cost of living in that country. So I couldn't give you a number. When I was in Ghana, I needed some antibiotics and they were like $6. But we had some people that needed to be taken to the hospital when I was in China, and it was a couple $100. I don't think I've had anything like major surgeries that I've personally experienced. So it's going to just vary so much. And you can do the research on what that looks like to make sure that you have the coverage that you need from your insurance company, because they may say, you know what, we'll only cover you up to $5,000, or we'll only cover you up to $10,000. And if you know that $10,000 will get you one round of antibiotics in that country, maybe you need to get a policy that covers a little bit more. Great question. All right, let's jump into packing. What do you need to pack? What are the things that you should have with you? First and foremost, this is probably the top of everybody's list, is your cell phone. We want to make sure that we have a method of communication. When I did a lot of my backpacking, cell phones, because I'm so old, cell phones didn't have the capabilities that they do right now. And so we didn't rely so much on them, but now it is a tool for just about everything. So call your provider and find out what coverage looks like in the country that you're going to. Are you going to be roaming? Do you need a different SIM card? Do you need an eSIM? Do you need a different phone altogether? What does it look like? So make sure you know, because the worst case scenario is you land in the country and this thing is useless. It will not connect to anything. So make sure you're checking in to know that your phone will function in that country in a way that you need it to. You want to make sure that you're bringing your phone, all of your cables for charging. We don't want to run out of batteries, and then a power bank. So if you have an extra battery power bank that you can recharge on, really great idea, because you're going to be burning through that battery. If you're using it for maps, if you're using it as a compass, if you're using it for translating, if you're using it for your tickets, that thing is going to be on and in use so much that you're going to blow through a battery in no time. So having those extra ways to charge your phone is going to be super helpful. You also want to make sure that your phone is loaded with the apps that are going to help you. So like I said, maps, making sure that you've got a map app on there that's going to work in that country. Make sure you've got a weather app so you know what's coming for the day. Perhaps a translation tool if you are going to a country that doesn't speak your native tongue. Make sure it has a flashlight. I know it's kind of standard, but you might be out after dark and need a flashlight. A compass. Seems silly, but sometimes we can get really disoriented in other countries, and a compass is going to be really helpful to get you back on track. A calculator or a currency converter. So making sure again that you're not getting scammed by anyone with the conversion, and that if math isn't your strong suit, that you can be sure about how much you're actually spending on the things that you're paying for. So get those apps preloaded. Can be really helpful to have them all there at your fingertips and ready to go for your trip. Now, this also may sound funny, but paper maps are super helpful when you're traveling. Again, sometimes we run out of battery, or sometimes we don't want to have our phone out in our hand for safety reasons when we're walking around. So having a paper map, either one that you bring ahead of time, or often when you're checking into a hostel or a hotel or whatever your accommodation is, often they'll have a block of paper maps that you can just tear off and take with you for free. Really helpful. Often it will have restaurants indicated on there or some of the most popular tourist attractions, but having that can be really helpful in the event that you get turned around and the phone isn't accessible. If you need to learn how to do a map, do it before you go. Do a little orienteering on your own, like leave your phone at home and then try and make your way around using an app. Go into a hostel in your local town, go into Vancouver Hotel and pick up a paper map and try and get somewhere. Practice that so that you can get oriented when you are going into another country. All right. Other things to take with you. Locks. If you're going to be staying in hostels, often there are lockers that you can put stuff in to keep it safe. Locks for your bags. If you are wandering around and want to put a lock on your bag, can be really, really helpful. You've probably heard this before, but crossbody bags are better than shoulder bags, backpacks, all of that, because it's going to keep it close to your body and nobody can grab it and run in the same way. There's all sorts of fancy ones out there. You can get a basic one, or you can get a fancy one that has straps that can't be cut, inside zippers for your passports and your money. Some of them are even RFID blocking, so nobody's going to be able to take your information by being close to you. So you can go as simple or as fancy as you want, but really a crossbody bag is the best type of bag when you are wandering around a city. And good old-fashioned whistle. Just take it with you. People are like, oh, pepper spray. Well, can you bring pepper spray on an airplane? Probably not. It might explode in your luggage. It's very complicated. It might be facing the wrong way. All of these things. A whistle can make so much noise. It's so simple, so loud. It gets people's attention and can save your butt if you get into trouble. So definitely pack a whistle and just keep it with you as you are wandering around, whether that's in your pocket, in your bag, whatever that is, but have it accessible so that you can use it if you need it. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that might be a good safety item to pack with you when you're traveling? Maybe something you've packed in the past, maybe something you've heard from someone else, maybe something that YouTube has taught you. What are some of the things that you could bring with you if you were traveling as a safety item? Pepper spray? Yeah, yeah. Make sure it doesn't explode in your bag. Make sure you got it to facing the right way. It can be very complicated, but for some people, that's how they feel the safest. Then by all means, my preference is a whistle, but totally, totally up to you. Amazing. All right, let's talk about when you are actually on the road. So you've done all this prep, you've set yourself up for success, you've got your safety equipment, let's call it. You've planned, everybody knows where you are, things are going really, really great. Something I didn't put on the slides, but I want to talk about is having a communication plan with somebody else. How often are you going to be checking in? This will put everybody at ease. Are you checking in daily? Are you checking in weekly? Are you checking in every 3 days? Because if you are not on the same page about that, the other person is going to worry. So if you say, you know what, mom, no, I'm checking in every Monday. I'm gone for 6 months. I can't call you every day for 6 months. I'll check in every Monday. Then mom knows not to freak out if you haven't called on Tuesday. She knows that you're going to be calling on Monday. Or opposite case scenario, if you said you're going to call every day and you miss a day, then it might be time to start figuring out what's going on. Did something happen? Do I need to be more worried? So have that communication cadence set up with somebody at home that you're checking in with so that everybody is on the same page. But that was just something that I forgot to put in here on the slides. Let's talk about you're on the road. What are some of the things that you should be looking out for? The first one is researching the local scams. Every town is known for something different, whether it is tuk-tuks that are going to charge you too much in Thailand, people who are going to be porters and carry your bag and then hold it ransom. Some people will sell you SIM cards that don't work. So it's pretty straightforward to figure that out. There's lots of sites that will share what are some of the scams that you might experience, and just be aware of them so that you are not going to be that gullible tourist that is going to be taken by one of these scams. So think about it. Do that research, figure it out, even when you land and you're talking to the accommodation. So at the hostel or the hotel, ask them, where are the spots in town that are the pickpockets are hanging out? What are the things that I should be aware of so that I don't get into trouble? Talking to the locals in a trusted source like an accommodation can be so helpful. Really is a great way to get information and to stay safe. Other things are just common sense. Don't stay out in the dark. Try and limit that as much as possible. The daylight is your friend. It keeps you safer. Just use your common sense when it comes to that. Obviously, if you're going out for dinner and it's late and it's going to be dark on your way home, it's going to happen. Don't not go out for dinner. But make sure when you're walking home, you're taking the best lit path. Don't walk down that alleyway. Don't take the shortcut through the unlit park. Just use your common sense when it comes to darkness. Also try and avoid being alone. Is there somebody else that you're traveling with that safety in numbers? We hear it all the time. So try not to be alone. Even if you're traveling alone and you're hanging out in the hostel, find somebody else who might want to go out for dinner with you, or find a tour group that's going to be doing the tours that you want to see to the places that you want to go in that city. So try not to spend too much time on your own, especially at night. Definitely use substances carefully, whether you're drinking or using a legal substance in whatever country you're in. Also check the laws around that because it's not universal. Make sure you're using it carefully. Women and girls are used to this, watching your drink, making sure nobody is putting anything in it. Very important. Make sure that you are not getting to a point where you are making poor judgment. So make sure that you are in control, especially as a tourist. You're in an unfamiliar area. You have unfamiliar people around you. So don't go out there and lose control and lose your ability to keep your wits about you. And then I said, again, talk to your accommodation. They are a great resource. The biggest thing that I can tell you when you are traveling out there, trust your gut. If something feels weird, it probably is. We have really, really good senses around us that will help us to make sure that we stay safe. We have evolved to avoid tigers, avoid woolly mammoths, avoid all of these things. We've evolved to have really good senses of danger. So trust your gut. If your gut is telling you, do not pay for this, do not go with this person, do not use this ATM, trust it and find an alternative. There's always another way to get stuff done. So trust yourself. You have a really, really good sense of who you are and what's going to keep you the safest. So we did a whole lot of chatting. I want to leave space for questions or comments or things you want to know more about from my perspective or from some travel safety. You're going to get an email with a fun quiz attached to it. So what is your travel style? I can actually pop that link in here if you want to do it right away. Oh my goodness. I think this is the link. Let me just double check here. Of course, now I'm not finding it here. Style quiz. There it is. Oh, it's called Gap Style. My mistake. I was typing in the wrong thing. So if you want to do a fun quiz, get some resources for different styles of travel, that's a really fun thing to do. We also have partner programs that will give you some ideas of different organizations that you could travel with if you want to volunteer, if you want to do tourism style trips, if you want to do arts trips, whatever it is, cangap.ca/programs will get you to all of those things. Let me see, do I have another one or is that's my last slide there. So with the next 6 minutes, I am totally open for questions. What questions do you have? This is the time to ask them, and I am more than happy to answer them. How are you able to work abroad? Great question. I had what was called a youth mobility visa. I can pull the link for you really easily. It's right here. So the youth mobility visa is the best thing if you are between the ages of 18 and 35 in most countries. It is a 2-year visa that allows you to, it's called the working holiday visa or work travel visa or youth mobility visa. It's got lots of names, but Canada's partnered with more than 35 different countries and territories around the world where you can get this visa, good for 2 years. And you don't need a job before you go. It's relatively quick, easy, cheap compared to a lot of other visas. You don't need to have a job before you go. You can quit or get fired and still be able to stay in the country. You can go to other countries while you have that visa. Very, very easy visa to do it. It is only a 2-year visa, Rory. If you want to stay longer after that, you're going to have to get a working visa. And for those, it costs a little bit more money, and you usually have to have a sponsor. So a company that's going to hire you and keep you in the country. Usually that's the process after the 2 years if you're going to be sticking around longer term. But that youth mobility visa is great. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Great question. Are there working visas available for people who are 17? No. Great question, but no. 18 is kind of the number universally around the world that folks need to be for that visa. So 17, there are other things you could do. There are things like, let me pull it up here. Workaway. So, oopsies. I was just pulling oh my dear. Why do I keep doing this? Here we go. Got it. So there's an organization called Workaway. Oh, why will it not let me paste it? Clearly it's past my bedtime. Let's try this again. Here we go. There we go. So Workaway allows you to volunteer in exchange for room and board. So you don't have to pay for accommodations or food, but you do volunteer for the family or the spot that you're volunteering for. So that can be really helpful for folks that are not yet 18. Okay, how do you decide between planning your own trip versus going with a program like G Adventures? Great question. It depends on a couple of things. It depends on your comfort level primarily. Are you comfortable traveling? Are you comfortable on your own? If there was a challenge, would you be able to handle it? So let's just imagine yourself, if you lost your passport, would you be able to handle that on your own? Or would having somebody there to guide you help you? I think that's really, really probably the best way to imagine it is if your hotel, if you couldn't find a hotel, would you be able to handle that? Do you need somebody there to help you with the logistics side of things? If you also want to have a really relaxed time where somebody is going to take care of all that, the guided tours can be really, really great to help you with that, because you don't have to be worrying where your next meal is going to come or if you're going to get to the Guinness storehouse. Like, it's just all there. They'll just tell you, show up tomorrow for breakfast at 8 o'clock. Great. Bring a windbreaker because it's going to be cold tomorrow. Great. You don't even have to think. You just get to do. Which is really, really fun. The other thing that I encourage people to do is, if they're kind of newer to traveling, is to do an organized trip, but then not to fly home right at the end of it. So maybe do a 2-week tour of Europe, but at the end, don't fly home on day 14. Stick around for another 7 days and do 7 days of independent travel, because you'll learn a lot from being on the road with that person, but then you'll also get that independent travel experience. Great question, Sunny. Are there any programs you would suggest to us? The best thing to do actually for that question is to book a call with me. .ca/gap chat. We'll pull this website for you as well. Yeah, there it is. And we can go over what you are interested in, because there are millions of programs out there. So it will depend on your budget. It will depend on your location. It will depend on how long you want to be away. It will depend on the style of travel you want. It will depend on what you're interested in. So book a call with me, and we can go over what programs might be the best fit for you. Avoiding sickness abroad, stories of food and water poisoning. Yes. Waterborne illness tends to be the biggest. So water comes in lots of forms. Water comes in the form of ice in your beverages. So a lot of people will order their drinks without no ice, please. Having pop straight from the bottle or the can, making sure that it's not being mixed with water or ice. Other things, make sure you get your Ducarol. So if you go to a travel doctor, there is actually a liquid that you take 2 weeks before your trip that kind of makes your stomach a little bit more impermeable to some of those nasty bugs, and that can be really, really helpful. So I highly recommend that if you're going to some of the places where that can kind of give you some trouble. Watch out for like lettuces or fruits and vegetables that retain water when they're washed. So like if you think about an apple, when you wash it, the water falls off of it and you're good to go. But whereas lettuce kind of traps a lot of the water in it. So avoiding that type of fruit or vegetable can be helpful. And just be aware. Just know that it's there, and have medicine in the event that you do get struck with it. Yeah. This is the third of 3 modules. Can you share the links to the recordings of your first tool modules? Yes. They are all, I believe, no, they are not all posted on our YouTube channel. I will send out an email to everyone with those links, because I don't have them at my fingertips at the moment, but anybody who attended any one of the 3 workshops or signed up for them, I will send out all of the recordings for them. Yeah, great point, Sarah. Amazing. All right. Well, book a call with me if you want to chat some more. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I wish you safe travels. And I hope that you just get out there and see the world, because it really is just such a beautiful thing to see and a great way to expand your horizon. So thanks for joining, and we'll chat later.